Good evening, folks. I see some of us kind of trickling in here. We're going to give it a few minutes, start around 6:01, 6:02, allow everyone to log in here. All right, we've got some people joining. Give it another minute. Okay, let's go ahead and start. I'll talk slowly so that folks have a chance to get logged in and settled here. My name is Annie Bruno. I'm with the Arc of Illinois Family Advocate Program. Here with me today, tonight, I also have Shakari Asbury. She's going to help me present as well um, as we work our way through this presentation. So thank you everyone for being here. Um, we'll start with some initial kind of housekeeping items, including that your video cameras are turned off. Everyone is muted. We cannot see you or hear you. So just enjoy kind of listening in. This webinar is being recorded in the next few days, hopefully tomorrow sometime, if not Friday or Monday. We will get you a copy of the recording. I will be emailing it, as well as a copy of our slides. So you will have all of that in your email to the email you used to register. And that will all be coming to you in a couple days. So just listen in tonight, jot notes as you want, but you will get copies of everything. Closed captioning is enabled if you need some additional captioning. At the bottom of your screen, there should be a little CC button you can press and get some captions. Participants are muted, as I said. Videos are off. If you have comments or concerns, go ahead and put them in the chat box. If you have questions, we do ask that you put them in the Q&A box. This is really helpful because it helps us keep track of any questions that come in. And that may be by going to your screen on mine. It's those three little dots in a circle that say more. And then from there, you can see Q&A. We have about a 3 or 4 question survey that will automatically pop up as soon as you exit the webinar or as soon as the webinar ends. So please fill that out. It really helps us. It's very quick. We would really appreciate it. And if you like what you hear today or you're interested in learning more about the Arc of Illinois, we have some information here about how to join us. We would love your participation and engagement. You get all sorts of helpful, helpful, interesting webinars and opportunities through joining us as a member. So we encourage your participation with that. And with that, I'm going to get us started. Shakari, I'm seeing some back and forth about some audio, so hopefully we got that figured out. Um,
Yes,
can I get
ma'am. Thank you.
a yes, ma'am, everything is good. You can hear me just fine.
Yes, absolutely. I can hear you great.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Shakari. And goals for today, some discussion items we're going to have for today. We're going to talk about that home and community-based Medicaid waiver program. That's the long form of the services, the long form of the name of services that you can get once you get selected off of the PUNS waitlist. We're going to talk about PUNS, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about the services within the waiver. We are going to talk briefly about the Ligas consent decree, an important status of things here at the state level. And we're going to talk about the Arc of Illinois to make sure that you know how we can help you and help you if you are interested in membership or anything to that degree. So, a little bit more about the Arc at first. We're going to talk, as I mentioned, we are from the Family Advocate Program. Family Advocate Program, as well as the Family Support Network, are both directed under Miss Shirley Perez. We here at the Family Advocate Program mostly are focusing on PUNS and waiver services. And my colleague, Miss Shakari, does both Family Advocate and Family Support Network work. And Family Support Network work is is taking calls from families who are maybe already in services and needing some navigating and helping out some more complicated cases. So we're working with a lot of different families in a lot of different parts of the process, and including and especially our lifespan team. These are what we kind of affectionately call our general practitioners. Our lifespan team is going to help you get connected to lots of information and resources, system navigation questions. They host a monthly webinar with our Family to Family Health Information Center, kind of combined. Um, and we have all of those saved on our website, archived. You can watch the recordings. These are things like SSI versus SSDI. Let's talk about respite support. What about opening an ABLE account? All these kinds of very helpful system navigation questions. So would encourage you to look at our website for more on that. We also do a lot of advocacy around the state-operated developmental centers, which are our institutions here in Illinois. We have a variety of education and training opportunities. And at the end of our presentation, we have some more information about this, but next week is our annual convention. This is a awesome opportunity to hear from everyone at the ARC. It's a Wednesday all day, Thursday most of the day, hosted over in Bloomington Normal. But we also offer a hybrid opportunity so you can attend online as well. Wonderful chance to hear about our programs, hear from excellent speakers, not from the ARC, but a great kind of gateway in if you're curious about more about the ARC of Illinois. Okay, so I mentioned the Family Advocate Program. You heard me briefly mention Liggett Consent Decree. Our program was developed as a pilot initially in 2014 after the Liggett Consent Decree came about, which we have another slide for, so I'll talk about that later. But our goal again is to work with families who are navigating a PUN selection. That's most of our focus. But we work collaboratively and in conjunction with the ISC agencies, your independent service coordination agencies, in helping families understand all of their options and kind of teeing them up for that meeting with their ISC so that things are ready to go. We are funded through a grant from the Illinois Department of Human Services, Division of Developmental Disabilities, our focus. And so that's a little bit more about us. Okay, Liggess. Maybe you've heard about Liggess. Maybe you've heard that name before. The Liggess Consent Decree is named after Mr. Stanley Liggess, who was one of the plaintiffs who sued the state back in 2005 on behalf of people with disabilities. He was residing in a intermediate care facility, which is kind of considered to be like a private institution, and he wanted a smaller community-based home. And so he sued the state saying, hey, I want community-based services. State went into a consent decree. That means that it's very possible your loved one or people you know are Liggess class members. A Liggess class member is anyone over the age of 18 who qualifies for these services, currently resides in the family home, and who wants or needs services in the community. The state has to have a record of them wanting those services, and we consider that record to be enrolled on the PUNS list. So if your loved one has been recently selected off of the PUNS wait list or has been early notified, they're a Liggess class member. And that means, it's just good to kind of stay up to date on this stuff. A couple summers ago, the state sought to end the decree, and that was denied. And so last I heard, they may be trying to appeal that. But my point in telling you that is that we are still in a decree. This has not resolved yet. And if you have more questions, you can reach out. We've got Laura Miller's contact information here. She's one of the original lawyers involved in the case. Okay. Pardon me while I drink some water. So we're going to kind of talk meat and potatoes tonight and really get into the details. But before we do, we like to kind of give you access to this cheat sheet, so to speak, of key acronyms. And you can see that there's a link here. And again, you'll get copies of our slides. So you can visit that link. Um, and this has got all the acronyms you may need from state stuff. So you will hear a lot of ISC tonight. We'll try to kind of break that down, Independent Service Coordination Agency, or if you're referring to your caseworker, it's your individual service coordinator. PASS, we're going to talk about pre-admission screening, home-based services. You'll hear a lot of these, and so it's important we kind of break them down for you. Okay, let's see. So you may have heard me at the very beginning. I talked about a home and community-based Medicaid waiver program. Um, A home and community-based services waiver is sort of like an agreement between state Medicaid and federal Medicaid, kind of paying into the pot to try to drive away admissions from institutions by offering more community-based services. So Illinois has 9 different waivers. Each is designed to meet a specific type of need and offers different services for those needs. But tonight, what we're going to be talking about is the Adults with Developmental Disabilities waiver. And it's important to note that HCBS waivers um, are paid for by Medicaid. So individuals involved in these programs have Medicaid and actively maintain their Medicaid. And that's very important. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So the 9 waivers in Illinois, we've got bolded Adults with Developmental Disabilities waiver. It's just important to kind of have an awareness. The services you can get from waiting on PUNS are very helpful, and many people really enjoy utilizing those, but they're not the only options in Illinois. There are some other service waivers. If your loved one, let's say, is a child and medically fragile, using a G tube or generator or requiring certain things, that may be a much better fitting service. So we like to just let you know that there are 9 waivers in Illinois. You can visit that link we have there to kind of peruse if you're interested. But tonight we're going to mostly be talking about that Adults with Developmental Disabilities waiver. And before we do, because as I said, we're really going to kind of get into the weeds about it. Let me first touch on those ICFDDs, intermediate care facilities. Again, this is where Stanley Liggis had been living. These are considered to be kind of private institutions, but they're not huge necessarily. Some are smaller. Most are about 15 or 16 beds per facility. They are licensed by the Department of Public Health and they're paid for by Medicaid, but they are not one of the waiver programs that we just went over. So the interesting thing about an ICFDD is that if your loved one really needs residential placement, either for their safety or your safety or whatever the case may be, ICFDDs are an option. They do not require a PUN selection. So this is good if you know someone who's maybe needing more emergency or urgent placement. ICFs can fill that niche. It's an entitlement if you qualify. So if you find an ICFDD provider in your hometown and you think it'd be a nice option for your loved one and they can accept and serve your loved one and your loved one qualifies on paper, then you can move in without needing to go on to PUNS for that purpose. Though some agencies may have internal wait lists. So we're going to kind of put a pin in that as, hey, that's an option if you need it. Let's set it aside. And tonight we're going to talk about the home and community-based waiver, which does require that PUNS selection. And so most of our focus tonight is going to be PUNS, the services you can get from having waited on PUNS. This is one of those 9 Medicaid waivers. It's overseen by the Division of DD, Developmental Disability, under the Department of Human Services. Services can be pretty flexible. It does require that selection. Okay, so the process. I'm going to go over this briefly because most of you have probably already gone through some or most of this, but we want to include some eligibility criteria. Um, you can qualify one of two ways. You can qualify on a diagnosis of intellectual disability, which is a full scale IQ score of 70 or below. Um, Severe, profound, moderate, mild intellectual disability. And as a result that, in deficits with adaptive behavior. And this has to be manifested and documented as prior to age 18. So you can qualify on a diagnosis of intellectual disability in and of itself. That can qualify. Or you can qualify on a related condition. These are things like autism, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, Down syndrome, Rett syndrome, Fragile X, um, lots of different related conditions can qualify if they result both in an impairment in your intellectual functioning and or your adaptive behavior. Your adaptive behavior has to be considered and demonstrated as resulting in substantial functional limitations in at least three of those six areas that we've listed here. And a related condition has to be documented and on paper prior to age 22. Now, some people have both. Like some people may have a diagnosis of Down syndrome and moderate intellectual disability, or Prader-Willi and intellectual disability. What we are seeing, is going to have trouble qualifying is if you've got a related condition like autism, cerebral palsy, but your IQ is quite high. That's going to be hard to qualify, especially, you'd really have to be demonstrating significant limitations in those life skills areas. The other thing I'll just mention that doesn't qualify are things like emotional disability, behavior disorder, anxiety, ADHD, OCD, mental health concerns. Those may severely impact your loved one's adaptive behavior and general functioning, but they're not necessarily a developmental disability. And so that's where, things kind of have to really be delineated by the state. So we like to have you have that information. I assume and think probably some of you or many of you are past that point or already are waiting on puns and have been told that, it's assumed you qualify. But here's kind of the roadmap, so to speak, of getting into services. So I can't take any credit for this, though my team made it before I got here. I think it's an excellent resource. Highly encourage you share this around. This is saved on our website as well, so you can download a PDF and print it out. You contact your ISC to get enrolled. You're placed on the PUNS wait list. You update year after year. Um, I'm not going to go over all this in detail, but you can read through some of the other stuff. When you are nearing a pun selection, the state has recently implemented an early notification process where they're kind of giving you a heads up. We think we're going to select you soon. That allows you to contact your ISC, kind of get all your ducks in a row, get your paperwork squared away, get onto Medicaid if you're not already for your loved one. Talk to us. We offer free consultations. And after some time waiting and prepping, you'll get your pun selection letter. That is your invitation to apply for services. And I want to make a note here that your pun selection letter does not ever expire. So you can sit on that, you can move forward, up to you. You'll go through the process of determining clinical eligibility. You'll work with your ISC agency for that. They will work with you to get enough paperwork that demonstrates you're clinically eligible for these services. You'll do a personal plan, you'll consider what services you want, you'll pick out providers for your services, and when all of that is said and done, it gets submitted to the state for approval by your ISC agency. And when and if your application is approved, you will receive an award letter, which is a very exciting day in everyone's life because it means you've made it into the waiver services. You can begin receiving them. And barring any changes to how these services currently operate, these are considered to be lifelong in the state of Illinois. So once you've done this whole process, you're kind of set for many, many years to come. Okay. This is in more detail. Again, I'm not going to go over this word for word. You'll want to apply for Medicaid. You want to connect with your ISC. You want to decide what services you want, your providers, have all your documents ready to go. And when the state's reviewed your application, you've been approved, services can begin. Your ISC agency continues to work with you. They won't be kind of your monitoring body once you are in the service realm. And so they'll visit with you at your home. They'll help you change or modify your services as needed, and they kind of follow you. So um, you have this sort of neutral third party kind of checking in on your services. Okay, this is just a suggested list. It is not exhaustive. But ultimately you need to talk with your ISC agency about exactly what's needed. Um, Refer back to this if you'd like. We're going to have copies, but you're wanting to demonstrate the clinical eligibility on paper. So all of these documents are helpful. I should note that a psych eval, psychological evaluation, if you don't have one of these handy, your ISC agency will help coordinate you getting one and getting an updated psych eval. Those have to be current from the most recent 5 years at the time of application. You'll also need an annual physical exam, which also needs to be within 1 year of the date of application. Again, your ISC may ask to see more of certain things, and they will guide you exactly on what they need from you. I mentioned this already, pun selection letters don't expire. It's the ISC's responsibility to work with you to complete eligibility. Your ISC must be in touch with you within 60 days of that selection letter. However, you are welcome and encouraged to reach out at any point. I always kind of say, like, they know about you, but you need to put yourself on their radar. So it doesn't hurt to give them a call. It's important to note that the ISC can close you, though, if you are unresponsive. So make sure you've got that correct mailing address with them, and updated phone number and email and all that. Your ISC cannot communicate to you that there's another wait list that you're going to be placed on. We've seen some trouble with this in recent years, just that folks are kind of moving through the process a bit slower. You're not allowed, your ISC is not allowed to communicate that there's an additional wait time. They're supposed to be working with you right away. Also, they're not supposed to encourage you to pursue other services like through the Division of Rehab Services, which is a different waiver program. They're not supposed to encourage you to pursue that. So we just want to make sure you guys are aware of all those things as you navigate this process. And again, you'll have these slides. You can read back through that. Your service options. So here's where we're really going to kind of dive in and sort of say, that was a lot that you told me to do. That was a lot of negotiating and moving around and paperwork. Why would I bother, right? So let's talk about why you would bother. There are two main funding options when you pursue these waiver services. So when you go to apply, you'll want to pick one or the other. It's home-based or CILA, Community Integrated Living Arrangements. Both have their pros and cons. Both can be provided in a variety of different ways and environments, but the main difference is who's going to manage services. So in home-based, we consider that to be the self-directed model. So you as a family or the individual are self-directing your services. You're picking, you're choosing, you're managing, you're coordinating, which again has pros and cons because it's responsibility, but it's also customization. So home-based, we're going to talk about in more detail, of course, but your family is tasked with managing your services. And in CILA programming, you have kind of picked out an agency and said, hey, can you please organize, oversee, manage care for my loved one? And that can look a lot of different ways as well. But that's the core difference, is kind of who's managing the services. So in home-based, every single person in that program in Illinois receives the exact same amount of money. It's a fixed monthly allotment. The state ties it to the rate of SSI, just kind of as like a metric that they use. And so the important thing to know is that this year in 2026, that rate is $3,132 per month. Now, let me be clear that that is not cash in the mail. That's not a check in your checkbook. It's kind of like a bank account with your loved one's name on it that the state has allocated to them. If you don't use all of it in 1 month, that's okay, but it just kind of goes away. It doesn't roll over. So it's best to kind of take advantage and use it wholeheartedly. We'll talk a little bit about these other services, personal support workers we're going to talk about, as well as SDA. These are kind of the more popular programs. Your SILA services are not a fixed funding amount. They're kind of allocated based on your loved one's needs. However, you as a family aren't necessarily aware or paying attention to what that reimbursement rate is because an agency is getting reimbursed to some degree for the services that they're overseeing for your loved one. So you wouldn't really be aware of that because it goes straight to them. These are the different types of SILA arrangements, and Sha'Carri is going to get into that in more detail. Um, so I hope I set the stage okay. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Sha'Carri to start talking about where and more details as we dive in further. So Sha'Carri, take it away. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Annie. So as my colleagues say, I'm going to take it away on this slide of where you can utilize your waiver services under the Home and Community-Based Service waiver. So the good thing is that you can use your waiver services within your residential home setting or within the community that you reside in. Okay, so that can be in your family home. If you have maybe an apartment with a roomie, you could utilize it there. If you live in a condo or a home or an apartment, it does not matter. You are able to utilize your services wherever within the state of Illinois. It can also be utilized in supportive housing or within a group home SILA. And also, we just want to notate that remember, your waiver is only able to be utilized one at a time. So if you are, for example, we do have some individuals that we speak with that may have a waiver under the Division of Rehabilitative Services, also known as DOORS. Um, if that is the case, please be reminded that you are only able to utilize one waiver at a time. Okay. So for those who may have the DOORS waiver, then of course notate that you will at some point have to make a decision if you want to keep the waiver that you have with DOORS or if you want to go ahead and pursue the Home and Community-Based Service waiver through the Division of Developmental Disabilities. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you, Ms. Annie. Now, on this next slide, we are showing the different services and supports that could be utilized under the home-based service option. As you see, we do have a few of these supports that are highlighted in red. These are some of the more popular supports that are really looked after when it comes to receiving the waiver. So you have your community day service program, which will allow the individual to go out to do recreational activities and, of course, some developmental skill building with peers like themselves. And then also you have the self-direction assistance. Now, the self-direction assistance is the individual who can come in to assist and manage the services and supports for the individual receiving waiver services. So they can help with possibly training a personal support worker, hiring that personal support worker, or if necessary, terminating that personal support worker. And it is optional. Okay, so this is not a requirement to purchase this person. I know some of the ISCs, of course, recommend this for the parents to, assist because this is already a pretty overwhelming process. It can be, but you do have the supports to help lift some of that off your shoulders. Okay, so this is optional. and it is recommended, so you can utilize this with the funding under the home-based service option. And then also you have the personal support worker. The personal support worker is the individual that will be assisting the individual with the waiver with services and supports, but they will be paid to do so. And with the home-based service option, with the monthly funding that's provided, the personal support worker can, of course, receive hourly pay from that monthly funding that's being received. Okay. Now, we have other supports and services that could be of interest. They do have the supported employment program. If you know your loved one is interested in partaking a part-time job, they do have this option available so they can have someone to possibly assist with applying for a job. Of course, assisting with the job application process, also providing job coaching, things of that nature to help them secure a part-time position somewhere. Now, they also offer different therapies such as physical, occupational, speech and vision therapy. They do offer what's called behavior counseling and also behavior intervention and treatments. And then we also have other supports such as the adaptive equipment, the assistive technology, and some other things that could be utilized with that monthly funding received under the home-based option. Note that some of these supports will require pre-authorization and prior approval, which has been identified on this slide. Okay. If you want to know more about some of these supports and services, there is more information provided in the link highlighted down below. Next slide, please. Now, when it comes to the home-based service program, only under this option, there is the feature of the personal support worker. For those who are interested in the personal support worker feature, here's what you need to know. The personal support worker can be anyone who is at least 18 years of age. So this can be a parent, a guardian, a friend of the family, maybe somebody you went to school with, as long as they're 18 years of age and can pass their background checks with the state of Illinois, such as the criminal, the sex offender list, the OIG sanction list, are some of the background checks that are included with that. And then also they need to have an understanding of the waiver rules, which are detailed in the consumer handbook, which was reflected on the last PowerPoint slide. And then, of course, they need to be able to work well with the individual that's receiving the supports and services. Okay. Now, this individual will be included in the home-based service backup plan. This plan will discuss pretty much in the case of an unforeseen event or emergency, if the primary caregiver or personal support worker is not available, who would step in into place. Things of that nature need to be, of course, discussed, which is generally during like the personal plan meeting. So this is just some idea of what to expect with the personal support worker role under the home-based service option. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, the personal support worker role is going to be compensated through that monthly funding that's received under the home-based option, which is a total of $3,132. And remember, as I stated in the last slide, this personal support worker can be your parents, maybe a sibling or a cousin or a neighbor, maybe a friend of the family, as long as they meet that criteria of being 18 years of age and older and can successfully pass their background check. Now, keep in mind that you are able to have multiple personal support workers. They actually recommend this. Again, just in case of any type of emergency, you always have a backup person that can step in immediately to, of course, pick up on where the last person left off at. Okay. And they can work from within that same monthly budget that you'll receive every month. Okay. One important thing I do want to advise is that if you are the individual that's receiving the waiver and then you happen to be married, your personal support worker cannot be your spouse. Okay. That's typically the only restriction when it comes to when it comes to who can be your personal support worker. As long as it's not your spouse, you are able to have anyone else to pursue that role. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, under the personal support worker role, there is a feature that we would like to discuss, which is abbreviated as EVV, the Electronic Visit Verification System. This was introduced a few years ago. It is a federal mandate that will, of course, impact all personal support workers under the Medicaid program. So for those who are going to use the personal support worker feature, keep in mind that this will apply to you. This system is set up as electronically verifying the services and supports that was provided to the individual receiving waiver services. This can be done through the Keratin app, which is accessible via mobile. So maybe a cell phone or a tablet of some sort, or you have the option of using your home phone, a landline, in order to, of course, share the information in regards to the services that were delivered, so that they can be billed for. Now, if you would like more information about this electronic visit verification and you know that you will be pursuing the role of the personal support worker, we recommend that you visit the website for Access, which is your financial management services in the state of Illinois. They share this information for free on their website. They do have multiple videos. That discuss information about EVV. Also, if you have questions or concerns, you have the ability to go ahead and call them ahead of time just to, have some general questions answered. Okay. We have the contact information for the director, Tasha Westside. You can definitely reach out to her, or again, you can just simply click this link right here that's highlighted in red to retrieve that information concerning the EVV. Next slide, please. Just some information that we want to share with you regarding the updated budgets from the Division of Developmental Disabilities regarding the 2026 Home-Based Support Program. Effective January 1st, the cost to you rate was reduced from 4.5% to 2%. And on December 10th, the Division of Developmental Disability announced that the CMS has approved an additional 5% increase to home-based service monthly budgets. Okay. So as you can see down below, we have listed for the monthly funding that is provided. In the case of the children and young adults waiver, as you can see, that's at $2,088 per month. But keep in mind, we are just speaking on the adults for the adults waiver. So the monthly funding for that was updated to $3,132 per month as of this year. Okay. So that's just the information we want to share with you so that you're informed of everything that goes on with the home and community-based service waiver. Next slide, please. Now, this is a sample budget and it shows the cost to you rate sheet. In this case, we're going to go over the information with the sample budget if you were to select the SDA, okay? Now, if you don't want an SDA, you don't have to, really concern yourself with this. But if you know that you are going to use a personal support worker and you're trying to determine the hourly wage utilized, it will also show the hourly cost to you in the case for employer taxes, okay? But when it comes to the sample budget with the SDA support example, the starting budget shows here your funding for $3,132 per month. If you were to hire a self-direction assistant, which is usually between 2 to 4 hours, in this case, it's showing the example of 2 hours per month, which is rated at $54.59 per hour. So your total for 2 hours will be $109.18 per month if you were to hire an SDA. Now, if you were to subtract that $109.18 from the monthly funding of $3,132, you show that you would have $3,022.82 left for your personal support worker. Okay. And again, you would use this rate sheet to determine the hourly wage and also the cost to you rate for the taxes. Let's say you pay your workers at $18 an hour. If you were to divide the total, the 3,022 and 82 cents, divided by the $18 an hour and 36 cents, forgive me, it will show you that you have 164 and a half hours monthly for your workers, okay? Again, if you don't want to hire a SDA, you don't have to. This is still a great chart to use for those who will be, of course, pursuing a personal support worker for their loved one. Okay, so keep that in mind. Next slide, please. So next we're going to talk about the supports under the home base, which is for home and vehicle modifications, the adaptive equipment, and assistive technology. These four categories stand out because with those four different supports and services, there is an additional $15,000 available only for those who want to utilize the home-based service option, okay? So every 5 years, whoever decides to choose the home-based option will have access to that $15,000, okay? But the home and vehicle modification, the adaptive equipment, and assistive technology is only utilized for this 15,000, okay? So if you want to access that money, you would simply reach out to the caseworker that is assigned to your loved one. You would let them know that your loved one would be in need of, for example, the headphones, the noise canceling headphones, which would be under the adaptive equipment category. Okay, you explain to them why they would need the headphones. They would send some paperwork off to DHS, and then they would, of course, once approved, they would purchase those headphones utilizing the $15,000 balance that you have available. And that is the same procedure for each category. For whichever one you want to utilize, always reach out to the caseworker that's assigned to you so that they can assist you with retrieving something from that category, okay? That could be beneficial to the individual. Some other examples that you could utilize under these four categories would be, for example, the ramp. If you need a ramp installed for the front door or back door entrance of your home, for example. Let's say maybe you need a wheelchair lift installed for your accessible van. That will fall under the vehicle modifications, okay? So this, again, is 15,000 and that money is reset every 5 years. So it's kind of similar to the monthly funding, but in this case, it is yearly. Every 5 years, the money will reset to 15,000. If for whatever reason the money there's a let's say there's a balance that's remaining, that balance does not roll over, okay? It will simply if you don't use it, you lose it, so to speak. But remember that $15,000 is always accessible, and it'll reset every 5 years. And this is completely separate from the monthly funding of the $3,132, okay? So this is a great feature to have, so anyone who selects home base will have access to this. Next slide, please. Now we're going to talk about the supports under the SILA option. As you can see here, we had some similar supports that you've seen in the last few slides for home-based service option. So for example, we have a community day service program, which is highlighted. They also offer like temporary intensive staffing for your loved one if needed. Again, we still have the supported employment as an option. They do offer adult daycare for individuals who are 60 years of age and older or considered medically fragile. And as you can see, there is the therapy that's available, behavior counseling, behavior intervention and treatment, just to name a few things. And then notice that they do have the adaptive equipment under here as well as the home accessibility modification and vehicle modification as part of the transportation component of the residential rate. If you need more information on this, you can always inquire with your caseworker, of course, with any questions or concerns with the supports under the SILA option. Okay, next slide, please. Now we're going to go into information about the SILA options for the group homes, okay? There is a 24/7 group home option under SILA. There is no fixed monthly budget when it comes to the Scylla option. Remember, that's only available under the home base. With the Scylla, the provider is going to take care of the housing. There is staff that's going to be on site 24/7, monitoring the residents within the group home. They will assist with meal preparations throughout the day. They make sure that the individuals are ready to go for any transportation to community day service, maybe support employment program, or whatever community outings that they have scheduled and planned for that week. Also, if your loved one is on a prescription, there is a certified trained staff that will pass medications to those who require a prescription. Okay. And as far as the home maintenance, the interior and the exterior of the residential home that your loved one will stay at will be maintained by a professional. That is something they will not have to worry about. Okay. These are some of the nice features under the group home option for the Scylla, which is the 24/7 group home option. Now, also within the 24/7 group home option, it's usually between 4 to 8 individuals in the household. So keep that in mind. Oh, thank you. You can go to the next slide, Miss Annie. Now, when it comes to the solar option, you want to make sure that there is going to be group home availability, and keep in mind that there may not be any availability, okay? Some of the group homes do have a wait list, unfortunately. So that's something to make note of if you decide to opt for the solar option, okay? Some things you can do to try to prepare. Before you make your selection, you can try to identify, of course, the homes nearby within the area that maybe that you're interested in. If you're wondering how do you obtain that information, you simply would get it from your caseworker, or you're more than welcome to reach out to the Family Advocate Program. We can access that list as well of different group homes throughout the state of Illinois. Also, you want to inquire with the caseworker in regards to regional availability. And then some other things to keep in mind for your loved one is if they would need a private room. These group homes, typically you have to share a bedroom with another individual, but there are some group homes that will offer, of course, a private room, but it does take a little research to determine who offers that. Okay. And then, of course, consider requesting placement on internal provider wait lists. Okay. So just you want to keep your options open because sometimes, your options under the Scylla can be a little slim. But you have your caseworker to work with you and to determine the best option for your loved one. Next slide, please. Another option under Scylla is called the intermittent or hourly Scylla. Okay. This is for an individual who is a little bit more independent and does not need 24/7 of services and supports. Anyone who selects the intermittent or hourly Scylla will understand that they only receive between 15 to 20 hours of supports per week. Okay. But that doesn't mean you're only restricted to that amount of time. If for whatever reason the individual is in need of an increase of hours due to maybe some limitations or concerns, they could definitely reach out to their caseworker at their ISC, at your Independent Service Coordination Agency. Speak with the caseworker to determine if you can see about having hours increased, okay? And of course, they will reach out to the Division of Developmental Disabilities to get that approved for that individual. Now, keep in mind with the intermittent or hourly Scylla, this option will allow the individual to stay within the comfort of their home, whether that be an apartment, a condo, or a house. So kind of similar to the home-based option, but this is still identifying as a Scylla option, okay? Next slide, please. Okay, so our last and final option under the SILA is the host family home. Okay, the host family home is a home that is going to be provided to the individual with a disability living with a individual who is not related to them, of course. This could be just a single person, a couple, or a family. Okay, now the host family home, again, it's a residential setting, so it'll be within a home setting. But when it comes to the host family home, the individuals, as far as how many can reside within that home, is only up to two individuals receiving the home and community-based service waiver can reside in the host family home. No more than two. Okay, that is the maximum. Now, the interesting part is that this home can be owned, leased, or rented by the individual served, the actual provider agency, or the host family. Okay. And the live-in paid caregivers can arrange for relief and vacation staff on their own schedule. And of course, the individual who will be taking over, if they ever have to take, vacation or time away, will be a direct support professional, of course. And they're typically set up just like the 24/7 group home. So there's someone there to assist them with day-to-day things, such as, getting up, getting dressed, the meal preparations throughout the day, making sure to see them off to a community day service program, for example, or any other thing that they may have scheduled within their community that they have set up for. So this is just one of the three options under the SILA, okay, that you can choose from. Next slide, please. This slide is just showing some information to links for those who are interested in reading more about the do's and don'ts under the home-based services option. Then you would need to select the link for the Illinois Consumer Handbook, which is a great detailed read, but it's very short. Also, we do have the link for those who need to still apply for Medicaid. Remember, the home and community-based service waiver has a requirement, and that requirement is to have Medicaid in place. But also, you can apply for Medicaid, food, or the cash assistance. And then also for those who's interested, you may also apply for Social Security. Again, this is not a requirement for the waiver, but it is available in case you need to apply. Next slide, please. So some upcoming events that we have that you can join in on. Please note that we do have Know Your Options available in Spanish. Some of you may have already known that, but we have included evening sessions, which are new. So if you're interested, or if you know someone who's interested, please invite them to sign up. This is a free event. Next slide.
Sorry, my clicker stopped working. There we
That's
go.
okay. That's okay.
There we go.
So we also have our contact information, but this slide shows the event Miss Annie had mentioned earlier today, which is our 76th annual convention with the Arc of Illinois. You still have time to register. We have the link available along with more detailed information, and we hope that we can see you there. And it is a hybrid event, meaning that it's online, but you may also attend in person. So you have options for that. Next slide. And of course, that was our contact information. You have the ability to reach out to any one of us on the team to address any questions or concerns. If you need a consultation still, or if you just need a refresher on something you consulted about previously, the Family Advocate Program is here for you, okay? So now we're going to conclude that with our questions that we have. And it seems we have a few questions already, Miss Annie. Our first question, let me see here. Where am I? Hold on one second. Oh, here we go. Oh no, there is no questions. Forgive me. That must have been a chat
I,
feature.
s- I saw a couple come through the chat, I think.
Let's
I would
see.
like to reiterate that you have Shikari and I's full attention for at least the next 7 minutes. So ask those
Take
questions,
advantage.
ask them now. I am going to put both Shikari and I's emails in the chat just so you have ours
Mhm.
specifically.
Thank you
But
so
I did
much, Miss
see
Arnold.
a couple come through the chat.
Yes, I see our first question asks, what does an SDA do? And that's the Self-Direction Assistant. Remember, as I was stating earlier, and I may have been talking a little fast, but the SDA is one of the supports available under the home base option. Okay. This is an individual who can come in to help manage and prepare and arrange the services and supports for the individual who's going to be receiving the home and community-based service waiver. It's kind of like the parents don't necessarily, or the individual does not necessarily have to lift a finger. They will try to arrange that to make it more easier for you. They can help with the communication process between you and the ISC, your Independent Service Coordination Agency, um, and some other things. Miss Annie, do you want to add on to that?
You did great. I just
Thank you.
always like to, I kind of say they're like an administrative assistant. Like they're
Ah,
going to help you do
yes.
all the paperworky things, help you navigate your budget, um, get things set up in a way that they should be. Great to have at least at first.
Yes, absolutely. And remember with that budget, you're able to, possibly if you would like, I think you should, maybe hire one if you're curious to see what it is that they can do to assist you and your family members. It's not restricted to several months of, utilizing this person. Maybe if you want to purchase them for 1 month and see how things go, and then take off from there, on your own. You have the ability to do that. Okay. Just some options showing you of how you could utilize that monthly funding, that $3,132. Okay, guys.
And Shakari, I'm gonna kind of piggyback because we got a Q&A in the chat, or I'm sorry, we got a question in the Q&A that
Okay.
is right alongside this exact thing. So, asking about in home-based, if you're paying for a personal support worker, the role of needing both an employer and an employee set up within the family home. And can you explain this a bit more and talk about the SDA? So let me just take a second to kind of set the scene here. If if you're curious, we are doing an entire presentation about this home-based boot camp at our convention, and we are kind of going over the key players in more detail. But re in brief, you will have to enroll someone you know as the employer. This is typically like mom or dad or another family friend who's pretty closely involved, but not going to get paid for their role. They're going to be helping approve timesheets, managing the budget, things like that. You have to have an employer. If you opt to purchase SDA, self-direction assistance, that self-direction assistant is going to work really closely with the employer to help them. If you don't have SDA, it's kind of all on that employer to make sure that your timesheets are set up okay in the online system, that you've done all your background checks appropriately, that you've met your requirements annually. Um, this person specifically uses this term like, does this fall onto the SDA to help us set this up? And absolutely, your SDA you are paying from your bucket of money to help you do the employer setup, the new hire paperwork. It's a big packet. It's a big old stack of stuff. And so if you have an SDA, they will sit alongside the employer and fill it out paper by paper. And would highly recommend you do that. And as Shakari said, you can always drop that service later. Many people have it for the first, 6 months. They get the hang of things. They say, thanks, SDA. Now we want, that $100 we were paying you back in our bucket of funding. So thanks
Yes,
for letting me
awesome.
hijack a bit.
And we have another question that asks, can someone move from home base to the Scylla option? Yes, that is true. You are able to definitely transition from home base to Scylla or vice versa, Scylla to home base. Or maybe it's someone, I don't know, maybe you're just in community day service program and you're going to utilize the full function of the home base service option, or maybe you're in the 24/7 group home Scylla and you want to do intermittent or hourly Scylla. You do have options where you can switch. You're not stuck within one option. But it's very important that you reach out to the caseworker that's assigned to you at your Independent Service Coordination Agency in order to process this, because they only are the ones that are able to help make those changes for you.
Typically, it's a lot of paperwork, um, and oftentimes a sort of reapproval from the state, but you have the right to
Mm,
switch around.
yes.
We got some more questions coming in. Thanks, everyone. Stick around.
Great.
We can stay an extra few minutes to make sure we get to everything. Someone asked, how do you become an SDA? Um, most SDAs are working at a provider agency. Not all. Some people are kind of like their own. I know someone in Bloomington that is like her company. She is the SDA, and that's the entirety of her company. But you are working with a certified disability provider agency who has become approved to provide SDA by the state and approved to accept that money from that bucket. So it's like a legitimate person who's trained and hired by an agency to do SDA. And
Awesome.
maybe a quick follow-up to that is um, you get connected to an SDA from your ISC agency who can make a referral.
Thank you, Ms. Annie. And the next question asks us, if you are receiving SSI and if you are granted support from DOORS, the Division of Rehabilitative Services, does the SSI payment stop and who can help you with that process? Now, keep in mind the Family Advocate Program is only trained on the Home and Community-Based Service waiver through the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And I do note that there are some individuals who are currently receiving SSI. For those for the DDD puns, I just want to state that you are able to receive SSI and also still obtain the funding from the Home and Community-Based Service. Uh, there is no penalty in having both of those when it comes to the Division of Developmental Disabilities. Now, if you're still referring to the DOORS, the Division of Rehabilitative Services, we suggest that you reach out to one of the local offices, according to your residential location, to get the answer for that. Unless, Miss Annie, do you know anything? Are you able to speak on that?
Nope. That was
No? Okay.
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. In this program, you can have both SSI and the services, but we are not experts in the doors funding. So,
Yeah. Um,
any other questions coming through? We're over by a minute, but Shikari
I
and I are
think
generous folks. We can stay another
so.
minute or two if anyone has a question.
But I do see a comment saying home-based boot camp sounds great. Thank you for the enthusiasm. Just to throw this in there, we are, of course, doing one of the plenary sessions during the annual convention that's being hosted out in Bloomington Normal. And we hope if you are going to attend that you stop by our session, which will be led by our colleague here, Miss Annie Bruno. And it's
Oh,
going to
well,
be a
it's
lot of
all of us.
with
It's
all
all
of
of
us.
us.
But it's going to
It'll be
be
great.
a great session. Definitely, we hope you guys can attend and see us there, especially for that session. Okay. But I don't see any
Absolutely.
more questions.
I don't either. You guys have our email addresses. When you log off, you'll get that survey. Please take that survey. We would appreciate it. And in the next couple days, be on the lookout for an email from me that's got both the recording and a copy of the slides. So you'll also have my email that way. Um, yeah, I think we're good, Shikari. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. Hope
Yes.
everyone goes and gets some dinner or chills out. I'm starving, so
I
I'm gonna go
know.
get my dinner. Thanks everyone for being here. You have a great rest of your night. Thank you,
Thank you,
Shikari.
Robin. Thank you, Miss Annie. Have a great one.